Good afternoon, everyone. And my name is Tony Hauser, and I'm on the product management team for Business Analyst. I'm joined by my colleagues in software development and software engineering today. Give you a comprehensive overview and update of the latest and greatest with the Business Analyst product stack. And this is an important part of our presentation here. So before we go any further, we'd like to take a quick survey of those of you in the audience. By a show of hands, how many of you are completely new to Business Analyst products? A good portion. Yep. Thank you. And thank you for joining us today. And of those folks that are joining us, how many of you are in the commercial retail industry segment? Okay. The health and human services. Okay. Utilities. Okay, thank you. All levels of government. Education. Nonprofits. And did I miss any major industry segment? And where are you from? Transportation, thank you. Mailing. All right, thank you. Anybody else back there? Yes. Retail, okay. And how many of you specifically work with the Business Analyst Web app or have worked with the Business Analyst Web app? Okay, thank you. And how many of you worked with our mobile apps for iOS or Android? All right. Business Analyst Desktop, specifically our ArcMap extension. Thank you. Business Analyst for ArcGIS Pro, our newest product offering. All right. And finally, Business Analyst Server, our enterprise solution. All right, without further ado, that's great. I'm going to hand it off to our software development lead, Gary Burgess. Gary? Oh.
Great, welcome everyone. So we got a little bit of introduction, just a few slides, and then the majority of the demonstration will be some demo. We are a small room, so we don't mind taking some questions midstream if they come up, but we are pressed for time. We have 60 minutes, so we may, if things... Well, I tend to speak too long, let's be honest. So if that happens, then we may reserve some questions at the end, and we don't mind sticking around for as long as it takes afterwards to answer some questions 101. So please come up and introduce yourselves. So just a little bit of information about Business Analyst. Just I think of this as our elevator speech. So Business Analyst helps organizations make informed decisions for site locations, customer targeting, and market planning. It allows you to combine your data on your customers, your subscribers, your patients, and combine that with Esri's living atlas of demographic, lifestyle, behavioral, psychographic, and spending data. And it allows you to explore patterns and relationships using smart mapping, performing workflows, location-driven analytics, and by creating and sharing beautiful reports that we're going to highlight throughout this presentation. So Business Analyst really is ArcGIS. It's an implementation of ArcGIS. We use ArcGIS to build our solution. It is a set of connected apps and tools, reports and data, all encapsulated in a set of workflows to solve business problems. Across many different industries, the ones Tony highlighted at the beginning of our presentation. From an end user perspective, we think of Business Analyst as people using our web application, a mobile application, desktop and pro, all of this powered by ArcGIS Enterprise or ArcGIS Online. We have customers using Business Analyst technology completely in the cloud, software as a service. We have organizations with sensitive data that host everything within their enterprise behind their firewall, and in many cases we have a blend of both. So this slide kind of highlights some, for our existing customers, some of the key things that we worked on after the last time we met at User Conference 2017. We introduced our first version of Business Analyst inside Pro. We continue to iterate and improve on something we call infographics, and I'm really proud of that new feature in our web application. It's something we're going to highlight shortly. Stephen and Kyle and Max are going to do a demonstration of the suitability analysis workflow, and then we worked on a new workflow for doing some comparative analytics as well too. So also for our existing customers, just some information that's important in terms of recent updates for this user conference. We just released a major update to our online demographic data that includes updated demographics for the United States, bringing it up to date with 2018 estimates and 2023 forecasts. And then that included updates for 35 additional countries. Business Analyst is in the box with Pro, so Pro 2.2, the latest release, is now available for download, and hopefully some of you are installing it, and Max will be showing you some of the cool new toys in that version. For those of you that are on maintenance, we're also providing updates for Business Analyst Desktop and Server for 10.6.1 that's also recently available as well too. Just a little bit more information about that data update I mentioned. As I mentioned, that demographic data is available now through our cloud-based content, so that means it's automatically available in the Business Analyst mobile application, our web application, as well as connecting to online data through desktop and Pro. That data will be made available shortly after user conference for on-premise deployment. So those of you that want the on-premise data for desktop and server, that will shortly be available. We're just testing that, and we'll soon have it available, hopefully sometime early in August. We're also completed an update for 35 countries. So Business Analyst can be used now out of the box in 137 different countries throughout the world. And not only do we provide demographic data as well too, we have basically an underlying layer of settlement points. This is a multi-billion layer feature, set of features that basically describe and illustrate where population is distributed throughout the globe. And a lot of work has gone in to improve the accuracy of those settlement points, and that's something that we continue to improve as well too. So a little bit information about Pro before our first demonstration. As I mentioned, our first version of Business Analyst Extension inside Pro was with the previous version, the 2.1 version. With this release, we introduced 4 key workflows that are described up on the screen right here. And I think the important thing to note here is this was very much a foundational release. There's some really important features and capabilities in that first version that are going to allow us to empower it to do other things. So we created a ability to connect to both local and online data. We have a data browser in there that allows you to work with your own content and Esri provided content. We rewrote the reporting engine, the engine that creates the PDF reports, to work with Pro's graphics engine, so it's really fast and powerful, as well as that we created a native 64-bit Pro data enrichment engine inside Pro. So think of that as that we built the engine now, and now we're going to get to do some cool things with it. In terms of what we just released with the 2.2 release, there's a couple of key things to highlight here. Kyle is going to show you the new suitability analysis. I can't say that word. Suitability analysis workflow. It's been a long day already. Suitability analysis workflow inside Pro. We've got 2 new GP tools for creating standard geography, trade areas, and desire lines, as well as some territory design tools. I know that the Pro team did a demonstration of some of those territory design tools earlier today. Just because we're so pressed for time here, we won't be showing any of those, but if you are interested in those, please come and visit us at the Business Analyst Island in the spatial analysis area, and we could give you a demonstration of those. So with that in mind, I'm going to turn it over to Max Sadaroff, and he's going to do a demonstration of Business Analyst in Pro.
Thanks, Gary. Here I have a set of physical locations, basically the brick and mortar stores for a company called Midwest Cellular. It's a wireless service provider in rural Wisconsin and Illinois. And I also have some customer data for those locations. Some of those stores perform better than the others, so we would like to know why. And one way to figure that out would be to just create the primary trade areas around those stores and enrich them with some of the data that we have available. So I will start by generating the customer-derived areas. These are just the polygons that contain first the nearest 60% of the customers for each store. So I'm selecting my store layer, my customer layer. The store ID is just a link between those two. So it's a link between customers and the corresponding stores. And I could select more than one radii here, but I will just use the 60% polygons for now. So what's happening now is that the tool will go through each store and get its customers, sort them by the distance from the store, and then get the first 60% of those and create the polygon around those locations. So there are several methods that are available. The default is this default detailed with smoothing. That's the cubic spline polygon around the area. So it's a cubic spline, so it can be pretty peculiar shape. So now we know the area from which our 60% of the customers are coming from. I want to know what is the demographic and competitive landscape in this area. So in order to find that information, I will enrich these polygons with additional variables. Some of them will be coming from Esri data, some of them will be my own statistical information. I will use the tool called Enrich. And that's the tool that is in Analysis Tools, Statistics toolset. And it's actually available to every ArcGIS Pro user. I'll just open it up, select my customer-derived areas as input, and fire off the data browser. So this is our new data browser in ArcGIS Pro. It allows you to access any of the thousands and thousands of the variables that are part of the 2018 data update for the United States. It's available through arcgis.com, through ArcGIS Online. And as Gary mentioned, soon it will become available as the local data set as well. So our current on-prem offering is still 2017. Let me drill into the population. I will select the 2018 total population, median household income, and median age. So now I have selected 3 of the Esri provided variables, and I can go to my content, drill into my competitor sales, and this is just the feature layer that is in my content in ArcGIS Online, and I set it up so that I could access it in Business Analyst. These are just the results of some modeling that I have done based on the info group allocations. So now I can bring in my modeled competitor sales. We are effectively combining the 3 variables that are provided by Esri with the 5 variables that are my own statistical data. And it actually can be any kind of statistical data. It can be your own sales figures, sales by quarter, sales by product category, could be some kind of a market potential that you have modeled yourself. What's happening now is that this data is being apportioned and summarized for this particular polygon. We are using the technology called block apportionment. It allows us to get the best possible accuracy, and it's actually going beyond the block group. So it's taking into account the distribution of the population and households inside the block group. So it's sub-block group apportionment. The data is back, and now we can see that there are 8,200 people living in this area. The median household income is 48,000, median age is 47.6, and our biggest competitor in this area is Verizon Wireless. So now that we have this information, it can be used used to make decisions or act on it. So another way to look at the customer data is by using the spider diagrams. We'll use the tool called Generate Desire Lines to create that. So that's just set of lines that connect the stores to your customers. So it's a visual thing, and at the same time, it allows you to calculate the distances. In addition to just straight line distance, you can also use any type of the network distance that you have set up in your system. In this case, I'm connected to ArcGIS online dataset, but I could also be using the local data. In that case, it's the local network dataset. Let me select a few stores here and run the tool. Yeah, in case you are using the network distance, you can also select things like travel direction, time of day, and time zone at the locations. All right, so now we can see that say this particular store attracts some customers from the nearby cities or villages, and there is a little bit of the cannibalization going on between these two particular locations. And the last thing that I wanted to show you is this visualization that my friend and colleague Tony Hauser put together, and that's basically is using the cartographic capabilities of ArcGIS Pro, and I have the bivariate symbology set up here. So the color represents the store location, and the thickness of the line represents the monthly sales for that particular customer. So this particular customer here might be far away from our store. It's almost 27 miles, but the sales figures for it are pretty high, so that might be not such an outlier. Maybe we don't want to filter that out. So that's the ArcGIS Pro demo.
Right, thanks a lot, Max. So next we're going to switch to our second demonstration, and my colleague Stephen Boyd is going to show you the suitability analysis workflow. We're actually we like this workflow so much we're going to show it to you two different ways. The first way we're going to demonstrate is within the Business Analyst Web application. This has been available since last year, but we've made some exciting improvements to the workflow. And essentially what it allows you to do is determine which locations are most suitable. It's really a nice workflow where we're working with existing facilities. And then when Stephen's finished, he's going to transfer, and then Kyle Watson's going to show the same thing working in Pro at a much larger scale. So Stephen? Cool.
All right, thanks, Gary. So yeah, as Gary had mentioned, I'm going to demonstrate the suitability analysis workflow in the Business Analyst Web application. And what this is going to do is allow me to rank 10 store locations I have in Southern California to find the most suitable location for a particular business use case. And that particular business use case is, these are 10, let's call big box home improvement retail store locations in Southern California. Just for demo purposes, I only picked 10 random ones. And we're working with they're working with a third-party solar company to figure out which store locations are the best to display their solar panel display booths within there to try to sell them to the customers coming in to this home improvement warehouse store. All right, so I've already got my 10 locations on the map, and to begin the suitability analysis workflow, I'm going to go to create maps from data, and then to our suitability analysis workflow. I'm going to click Get Started through the welcome screen, and I'm going to start with the features that are already on the map. So these are my 10 locations. I've got 15-minute drive times around all of them. And once they're selected, I can go ahead and begin selecting criteria. So there's 3 types of criteria, and I'm going to walk through each one of them and describe them. So the first one is I'm going to actually pull in two variables from our data browser. So this is the same data browser and data that was available online that Max just demoed. We've got over 7,000 variables in the United States, so you can pull in any of our socioeconomic, demographic data. We've got everything from how likely somebody is to buy golf clubs in the next 12 months to who was watching HBO last week. So in this particular use case, let's pull in some electricity. I can spell it today. Nope.
Oh, you spelled it wrong again. You spelled it.
Well, I wanted to repeat the same demo I gave yesterday. All right, so let's pull in owner expenditure on electricity for households who own their own home. And then let's also pull in some information about how likely somebody is to buy a hybrid or alternate fuel vehicle in the next 12 months, as there's some synergy or crossover between those two variables. So let's select those. And this is actually going out to our geo-enrichment service to enrich the underlying, those data, those study areas around each location with those values. All right, the next set of criteria I want to bring in are actually individual attributes or fields on each one of those site locations. So I've actually got two custom attributes down here at the bottom. This first one is the total megawatts. This is the total megawatts of commercially installed solar panel in the area surrounding the store location. So this will kind of give me an indication of how suitable those locations are for actually.
So Stephen, this kind of represents data that a customer may have for their own facilities.
Absolutely,
right?
yes, yeah. And then the second one, here's a good example of their own facility. So this is the available floor displays at each one of these home improvement warehouses. So we want to make sure, hey, there's actually available floor space if this third-party solar company wants to come in and set up their own display booth. So let's pull those in. So now I've got 4 attributes. They're all equally weighted, but let's pull in one last one. So this bottom one here is to add a point layer. So this actually gives you the ability to add an additional layer. In this case, I'm actually going to pull in a layer of my competitors. And what this is going to do is this is actually going to add another criteria and calculate how far away my home improvement warehouse is from my nearest competitor. And in this case, I want to be as far away as possible. So we've got 5 criteria. You'll see that they're all weighted equally, but I can go ahead now and start playing with my model here. So if I know that the number one reason why somebody buys solar panels is how much they're paying a month in electricity bills, so let's go ahead and increase the weight of that one. You'll see that the map dynamically updated with the results in real time. It actually automatically updated the weight of the other remaining criteria. There's also more options here. So as I said, there's a lot of our variables or criteria has a positive impact or influence on our analysis. So the more somebody spends on electricity every month, the more likely they are to want to purchase solar panels. So we also have the ability to set that to the inverse. So like I said, in the competitor location criteria, that's actually set to an inverse influence on ours. So the farther away we are from our competitor, the better in that case. Now that may not always be the case. You may have particular industries or locations where you want to be near a competitor, in which case you can make that a positive influence. There's also the ability to set filters, minimum and maximum filters. So if I know that the minimum square footage that I need available in each display or each home improvement location is 200 square feet to display the solar panel booth, I can set that as my minimum criteria, and you'll see that a few of my sites actually got filtered out because they didn't meet that criteria. So after I played around with this a bit and got this model exactly how I want, I can see my results in real time, like I said below here, and you can see that this Lake Forest, Orange County location would be my number one most suited criteria. So once it's done, there's a few things you can do. You can save the criteria. This will allow you to come back and run the same criteria again on these sites or even on another site. So say you wanted to save, you've got your model set here, but then you want to run it for Florida locations, you can do that. You can actually export this to Excel. That'll export this whole entire table here down at the bottom, including all the values. And then finally, you could actually share this as a web map. So you could share this to your ArcGIS Online organization, and then anybody else in your organization can pick this up and use this anywhere else on the ArcGIS platform.
That's really cool, Stephen. So that distance to the nearest competitor, can you just do that with straight line distance, or
Yeah, that's a great question. So in this particular analysis, I did just do a straight line distance, but there is also the ability to modify this to either do a drive time or walk time distance. So if you want to see how far of a drive time you are away from your nearest competitor, you can do that as well.
And you can also count the number of competitors inside your trade area as well.
Yeah, that's an option as well. Yep.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Great. All right, so while they're switching, I'm going to tap dance a little bit, and because Kyle's now going to take over, and he's going to show you the same workflow inside Pro. So basically what we've done is this has been a very popular feature inside the Business Analyst Web application, and we've got a number of customers that really want to do this at scale, so they want to do this with 100,000 features. That really doesn't lend itself to doing that kind of interactive stuff on the web, so we've now got this available in Pro as well too. So Kyle, you want to
Yeah.
take over?
Actually, no. I'd just like you to keep tap dancing.
All right.
Keep going. Keep going. You're doing a good job, Gary. How's everybody doing today? This is going to be the party. So, yeah, I'm excited. So there's a hair on my screen, but Max has a touch screen, and I think if I touch it, I'll screw up my demo. So I'm not going to touch it. And I think it's going to mess it up. So I don't think you can see the hair, which is good. So, all right. So, yeah. So my demo, if I went first, my demo would have been basically the same thing, but probably a little bit better. But he basically covered. Well, I didn't mean that to be mean. He's very good at what he does. No, but so I won't really be showing you anything too new, but I'm going to be showing you how this complements what Steven shows, but more at a scale level. So this is really representative in Pro of what Steven was showing, maybe at the regional level with a handful of locations, but here I've got all my organization data. That's the drive times I have here. These are 15-minute drive times that I created ahead of time, that I enriched them and I brought them in. And then so I'll start to show you some of the tools here. And then the pink little dots here are the competitors. So I've really got the same kind of content in here as he had. It's really the same type of demo. So if I click on my my suitability analysis layer here, you'll see that there's a context menu that pops up here. And also what I'll do is I'll bring up my tools here. So if you're familiar with Pro, which a lot of you, I don't think a lot of you actually use Pro yet. So this is like, hopefully it's interesting to you. So and you get familiar with what I'm talking about here. So we have a set of business analyst tools over here. So how I built all this is I have a suitability analysis tool set, and I simply open up the suitability analysis, make suitability analysis layer, and start going there. Once I make that, what I just showed you here was this context menu here, and then what you can see here is that it starts to look like what Steven was showing. So over here on the right, I have the ability to lock some of these. I can do some interesting things like, so here I have solar energy in here, and if I want to make this maybe 50%, so this is my most important variable of each of these criteria, it's automatically going to reflect that criteria that I put in, but it does it for the United States or this national level, which is great. So I'll zoom out here.
How many features is it doing that for?
Let's see. So I have in my attribute table 4,108 locations, which is pretty cool. So this represents 4,000 locations that I have in my organization across the country, and I'm trying to figure out which of maybe the top 10 or so are going to be the most suitable for this program of this solar that I want to put in my floor space. So with that floor space, if I look over here in the context menu here, it's got the same type of additions that I can add here. So I can bring it from the data browser, the Living Atlas, or the Esri demographics. I can bring it in this attributes from an input layer, and so that's going to represent my site-specific categories. So your parking spaces, you can have square footage or sales that you bring it in there, and then it could be a point layer. So a point layer here would be this customer or competitor layer that I brought in. That's the pink layer that you saw here, and that's looking at the competitors within each 15-minute drive time. If competitors were more important to me, I would just weight that as a larger weighted criteria here, and you can see the changes on the map. But what I really want to see is again who's making or where households are in the United States that are currently using solar energy to heat their home or cool their home. So that's very similar to what Steven was showing. And if I open up my attribute table, I looked at all 4,000 of these, scrolled to the right, and I have that same type of ranking or final score that the software has calculated. And if I take a look and drag and say, let's take a look at the top 6 or so, and where's the top one at, you can see that a few of these, based on based on the criteria, a lot of sun, we're in the great state of Hawaii here, so it's zoomed in, or if I could zoom out, a lot of people are heating or cooling their homes, hopefully cooling them in Hawaii. But if I take a look at a few more, get into the area of another sunny spot, which is in Dallas, which Donna lives in Dallas. So anyway, that's a little bit of I guess of what I wanted to show. Also, all of this, what I showed here, you can really just build in a model. So you could extend it. Here are all the tools that I actually would have used to do what I did, but I'm using this kind of workflow. If I wanted to automate what I showed and just basically press one button, I'd be using some network analyst tools, I'd be using some business analyst tools, I'd be creating reports. So it's extendable. You can add other tools and build super tools or take them out of ArcGIS into other models. So it scales well. You can use large amounts of data. You can use online data or local data. So Stephen was just showing online using web data. I am actually pointing to a local data set. And then really it's the same workflows. If you're familiar with the web, you can use it in Pro as well. So
Great. Thanks.
So yeah, so that's it.
Thanks, Kyle.
Yep. I only need 10 more minutes.
Pardon?
So can I do 10 more minutes?
10 more minutes? Yeah, it's all right. Let's build a model.
All right. All right.
All right, cool. Thanks a lot, Kyle. Again, it's a lot of power there. So if this is something you're interested in, please do come visit us in that spatial analysis area and visit the Business Analyst team. So I'm going to do now a demonstration of the Business Analyst Web app. I know when Tony put his hands up, it was like half the room are here to learn about Business Analyst as first-time users, and the other half of the room are existing users. So what I'm going to try to do is simultaneously do a demo to introduce the Business Analyst Web app while highlighting 10 new features for existing users, and I'm going to do it without a net. All right. So.
And then I'll do some more demos after.
Yeah.
For 10. No, maybe not.
All right. So what I've got here is I've logged into my online organizational portal. So point of emphasis here is that I'm going to be showing the online app through ArcGIS Online, but the Business Analyst Web app can also be installed on premises on top of your portal. It's the exact same thing, and the app can be skinned and have your own color schemes, and you can put your own logo on it. So the app switcher right here, these are all the apps that I have available within my online organization, and Business Analyst is one of them. So this is really the easiest way to launch the Business Analyst application. So I've logged into my portal. I'm going to launch Business Analyst. And then basically that's provisioned through a license. So your online administrator can assign the Business Analyst license to users within your organization. So one of the things we've recently added with our most recent online version is we made it really easy to launch your most recent projects. So we've got that here. So that's kind of the number one new enhancement with the latest version. So I've got a project here I've called Gary's BA project. So a project in the Business Analyst Web app is just a container for your work. It could organize your work geographically, or if you're a consultant, by the work that you're doing as well too. For those familiar with the ArcGIS platform, a project's really just a group, and then what that allows us to do is just fully embrace the ArcGIS online sharing model. So I could create a project, have a bunch of locations, and share that with Stephen so that he could extend that work. So I'm going to zoom in now to my home, San Diego here, sunny San Diego. And I'm going to show you the number 2 thing that was very recent to this. And we mentioned that we have new 2018 data available within the product. So you could see here as I could drill into the population, I could create a map of the 2018 total population. One of the things that's new with the 2018 data is we've got a new way that we've categorized our population data called generations. So this is really useful. for marketers especially, and it's rather than seeing a population by age, if you want to know the number of people aged 10 to 14, now you can actually get these nice categories of data. So if I wanted to look for millennial population, or maybe we're looking for some new hires, Stephen, within San Diego, so we could look for the the percentage of millennials here in San Diego. And then because this is a map inside Business Analyst, we can do things like use the smart mapping, but we can also filter to find the areas with highest concentration of millennials in the San Diego area. Cool. All right. Number 3. So this was a big ask at the last year's user conference, and there wasn't really an easy way to view an attribute table within the Business Analyst web app, so we added it. So here we've got a layer, and these represent some clinic locations in and around the Redlands campus in Redlands area and Riverside. So in the action menu for a layer, you now have an option to view an attribute table. It's also really smart here that when you set up a site layer, you have the name here, so that when you scroll and view all the attributes, the site name stays aligned here, and that way you can see, we can look at the rent, size, and patients for this particular area. So this leads me to kind of enhancement number 4 with the most recent version of the Business Analyst web app, is that users have asked us, is there a way to filter these locations? So imagine, if you will, I've got hundreds of clinic locations, but I want to filter out ones that meet certain criteria. So you can do that with the layer as well too. So you could filter by attributes. And then with these clinic locations, maybe I'm looking to, provide a new type of healthcare service, like provide flu shots or something like that. So we could look at different attributes. So here's a text-based attribute, and we could look for locations that have a pharmacy. So right now there are 8 locations on the map. And we're going to apply that filter, and now you'll see now only 6 out of the 8 are here. And then we could apply those filters as well too numerically. So if we wanted to look at the size of the location, and maybe in order to get flu shots, we need to make sure that we're a large enough location for that particular service as well. Maybe we want to find areas with the highest number of patients as well too. And when we filter those down, we could get to our favorite location that we're working with. So here's this Clinic 5 location. So that leads me to enhancement number 5 within the Business Analyst web app, and this is my personal favorite. This is the ability to create infographics. So think of infographics are an attractive, interactive, and visual way to represent key indicators. Those key indicators could be demographic data provided by Esri, as well as your own data as well too. So I'm going to show you some of the out-of-box infographics that we have available with Business Analyst. So the default one here is the key facts infographic, and this is, as it's named, are some key facts for the particular area. What's nice, as I mentioned, these types of on-screen interactive reports are interactive. So you could see here, wow, the median age for this area is looking low. It's actually only 28. I wonder why. So we could mouse over that particular area and then click on it and explore to see details. Now you guys feel free to ooh and ah at this interactivity. It's so what's nice here as well too is you could see, well, the median age here is the things that tells you what the largest group is are males age 0 to 4. So the largest cohort here, there are a lot of children in this particular area. You can mouse over to get areas, and what's also nice is that these are comparative as well too. So right now we're comparing this area, that clinic location, to Riverside County, but we could also compare it to the state of California instead. And you could definitely see here that this is definitely trending this area younger than the state itself as well too. So one of the new infographic panels that we just released is inspired by their tapestry poster. Anyone here seen the tapestry poster before? So it's a really nice visual representation of Tapestry. Tapestry is a neighborhood segmentation system that basically takes all of the U.S. neighborhoods and classifies them into main neighborhood types. You can see that same interactivity that we've got here that you would expect as well too. So here's a table that gives you information about where high concentrations of people are as well too. And what's nice about this is you can click on links here to say that 31% of the people in this area are part of the New West residence segment, and we can click on that and then we can get a nice detailed representation of what that neighborhood means as well too. Okay, all right, so this leads me to enhancement number 6, and this is probably my favorite enhancement with the most recent update of the Business Analyst application. We've added a new capability to capture and illustrate and show nearby locations within infographics and our classic style reports. So in order to illustrate that, we provide one ready-to-use template called Nearby Restaurants. So I will run that for this same clinic location. And what it's going to do is it's going to do two things. It's going to give us that same sort of demographic dashboard and spending data for a restaurant, but as well, we're going to map here of all the nearby restaurants for this particular location. So here's our location, and here are all the restaurants that are nearby. So it will let us know that there are 32 locations within the buffer ring here, and it's very interactive. So as you mouse over a location on the map, you'll see the same thing on the report as well too. You can sort the table by distance, you can export these results to Excel, and you can also filter the tables. So say we wanted to find only the locations that are within half a mile, we could do that as well too. Or we could filter by keywords, by company names, for example, or maybe I'm looking for some tacos after work, and then we could see those as well too. And then these infographics could have multiple pages. You can do things like zoom in as well too, or zoom out. And then the interactivity. So here we've got some information about expenditure of eating out. And again, we could drill into these to see more details. See how many people are eating out at fancy restaurants or full service restaurants rather versus fast food restaurants as well too. So that's pretty cool, right? So what happens if I'm interested in other types of facilities, not just restaurants? Well, we provide a complete interactive building experience where a publisher or administrator within an organization can build their own types of infographics as well too. So what I'm going to do is just to speed things up, I'll go in another tab, but under the build reports, there's this build infographics workflow. You could start with one of the starter templates, so start with that restaurant template, or you could build with one from scratch. And then templates can have different layouts. So here's a very simple layout where we've got 3 panels, and basically what I can do now is fill this with content. So over here what I've got a large panel, and I'm going to fill that with a map, and it's going to ask me what I want to use for a base map, or I could also log into my portal here and then use one of my web maps that I've created previously as well too. So that's it. I've added a map to our report. Here's where I could add things like charts or images. I could put my own logo on here, but maybe I want to add one of those infographics and I want to just have some information about the businesses that live nearby. Now here's where we could add that nearby information. So we've always had the ability to add a chart, an image, text, infographics, tables, and maps, and now with this latest release we've got this new capability called Nearby. So if we click that, what I can do is out of the box I can add traffic, shopping centers, or nearby businesses. And what's really important here as well too is you could add your own point level data. So if you've got your own crime incidences, accident incidences, your competitors, nearby ATM machines, and you've got a layer within your portal, then you could point to that as well too. For illustrative purposes, let's create one that has nearby banks, for example. So we'll select businesses, and then to make it easy, what we've got is we've got a set of categories of different types of businesses. So if you wanted to find all the ATM machines here as well too, and there's all sorts of different things. And then you could see here, there's where we had that restaurant category that we've here before. I could select banks. I could also type in NAICS or SIC codes to filter things, or search by company name, so I could look for all the McDonald's or Starbucks. I must be hungry. I think I keep talking about food. Yeah, and then with one mouse click, I can also not only create that table, I can add those points to the map. So that's it. You know, in basically 3 or 4 clicks, I've added a map, a beautiful looking little infograph here, and a table that's going to illustrate my closest locations. There are some advanced options if you want to go in. So for example, I could go in and edit the nearby table and do things like add other variables. So I could add the total sales in here, the number of employees for each restaurant. I could also do things like change the number of banks that I want to show. By default, it will show the 25 closest, but maybe I want to show the 100 closest locations as well too. Hit apply. I can go into my map now and I can change the symbology for that layer. So by default, these are all expressed through preferences, but I could go in and change the default symbol. You know, here I think a red circle works great for these particular businesses as well too. Lastly, just there's a lot to show here, but this can also be styled. So if you have your own corporate color scheme, we provide some ready-to-use ones out of the box to make them look nice, but you could also have your own color scheme and then do some advanced, basically CSS editing here and apply your own styles as well too. So we'll hit apply, and then we basically hit save. And what this is going to do is we'll call this nearby banks, and we'll hit, and then basically that'll create an item. And again, because that's an item that's saved in my portal, it's private to me by default, but I could share that so that other users using the Business Analyst mobile application, or rather the web application, will be able to run that infographic as well too. Oop. So I'll go back here and I'll add a different location. So I'll add our campus here, the most geocoded address in the world. I'm going to launch that infographic again. And then I'll select the nearby banks, and then we'll get that infographic that has the map with the dots on the screen and the table, and as well as to give me some information on the business as well too. And feel free to ooh-ah again while I do some interactivity as well too. It's pretty neat, right? Last component is the infographics. Is they are, you know, kind of dynamic and very fun to play with and allow people to do some exploratory work, but you do want to maybe share them with people that, you know, want to share them in other ways. So you can export these infographics. You can create a PDF. Export them to an image, and what's also nice here is you can also save this as a dynamic HTML. So basically that'll wrap up that whole infographic as a single HTML file, and then that can be embedded into your own websites, story maps, and other things. We're also working with the web app builder team, and they're going to be providing a widget that will allow you, once you design one of these infographics inside the Business Analyst web app, allow people to then consume it there as well too. And then you're going to start to see these infographics become much more pervasive and available throughout other applications. So the ArcGIS Hub application, for example, is one of the very first adopters of consuming these infographics as well too here. Pretty cool? All right, cool. So another way to look at information for a site is something that we call comparison reports. So you go through comparison reports, and we've got our new comparison report. So here are these same clinic locations that we've got here in the particular area, and I've, you know, created a report where I've got the health insurance, the high school education, the percentage of high school graduates in the particular area, as well as some income data. I could add additional variables that we've got here. So if I wanted to add them, say, the median age to this particular report, I could do so and hit apply. It'll add the age right here. Now we've got the age for each one of these areas. And then this table is very interactive, so you could drag and drop variables and change the order as well too that you're looking at. So that's always been in the product. So this leads me to what am I on, number 7 or 8? I've lost count now. My 8th favorite addition for this release is that we've added a new way where you could take one of the locations and compare it interactively to other locations. So with the one click, I could say, here's that Clinic 5 location. I'm going to make that my benchmark. And what that does now is it basically takes my values and compares it to all the other locations, and then basically creates the color scheme here. So areas in yellow with the little down arrow have values lower than my particular site. Areas in orange are either up or down but close, and areas are red, there will be areas that have a higher value than we're at. And then you can go in and edit these ranges as well too. So if you know that you wanted to make the yellow range a little lower, you could do so as well too, as well as change the color scheme as well too. Pretty cool, huh? All right. So next, which leads me to my 9th favorite enhancement to this release, is that this also came from direct feedback from our users at last user conference, is that we've always had the way where you could go in here and add sites, and you could choose neighboring geographies. I want to find my neighboring zip code, county, state, and United States. But in order to do that, it kind of took 5 or 6 clicks. So we were asked, could you make it easier to take one of those locations and compare it against a set of geographies? So again, we did that in 1 click, and we'll say compare with geographies. Now it's going to say that you're comparing against sites now. Do you want to compare these against geographies? I'll say yes. And then again, within that 1 click, now what I've done is I've compared that clinic location to the zip code it's in, to the county that's in, the state of California, and the US as well too. And we can do that same sort of thing where we can show a benchmark, and we could show how our site is either higher and lower than those particular areas as well too. And everything I've done right now can be saved so that you could reuse it later on as well too. And then you could also export this out into Excel. All right, so last thing I want to show is how you can bring in your own custom data into Business Analyst. I know that Stephen, you guys did a demo theater of that earlier today. It's, I think, difficult to show in this kind of setting. Is a little bit complex, so I'm going to just kind of show you the end user experience. So a lot of what I've shown today, we're working with the predefined data that's in there. But one of the things I want to make aware to you is if you have your own web maps, your own feature layers, basically your own data in your portal, whether that's on premises or your online organizational portal, you can use that data and bring it into the product. So there's basically 2 ways that you could do that. At the user level, we could go to add. I'm going to add web maps and layers, and then you're going to get that familiar browsing experience for working with your own content. Here we've got my own content, but I can also look at the organizational content, the groups as well too. So here I've got a particular layer where this is a layer that came from Tony. These are, I'm going to go to Belgium shortly, and I asked them, could you please find where all the brew pubs are in Belgium, because I plan to visit every single one of these locations when I'm there. So it's really nice way. Here you can see I'm adding, literally thousands of points that we're working with. But not only can you work with this content the way that I've shown here as well too, you could incorporate this type of content within those infographics and reports. So here I've got one layer where I've added where you've got a set of brew pubs, and then I've got another layer here where I've got some postal code data in the Benelux area where I've got some additional attributes. So this is my online organizational data. So these could be postcodes with my own sales, or with the number of deposits in my financial institution, the number of healthcare subscribers, the number of people that consumed online goods. So this is data that's, private to my organization. So what you can see here is that I'm able to bring that in at the user level, where I've got some market potential data here, as well as the number of companies that are in that particular area. So what we've provided is a new way where an administrator or a publisher that uses the Business Analyst Web application can use a workflow called custom data setup. And what you can do is basically set that up so that it becomes super easy to use your own data or third-party data. It could be, data from other sources, and make it appear like it's native data within the Business Analyst application. So if we go back to that that color-coded map workflow I demonstrated right at the beginning, you'll see here I could create a map, and I could do the same thing. I could create a map showing the total population in Belgium, for example. But I've got this tab up at the top that says, well, what about mapping my own data? So here I've set up 2 layers where I've got that market potential for beer, where I could now go and create a map that basically creates a color-coded map for that market potential for beer. So it's basically going to create that color-coded map for me. I could zoom in to a particular area and make it a little easier to see in the Brussels area. see that area. So that's really cool. So now I'm mapping my own data here. But because this is an ArcGIS application, we can leverage all the smart mapping technology that's available here. Now I could combine my data with data that comes pre-bundled with Business Analyst. So maybe I want to look at the market potential and compare it to the total population. So I'm going to add a second variable here, and we'll map total population. And now what it's going to do is create this map where the larger circles here are areas that have higher population, and the areas that are darker here have areas that are have higher market potential. So that's one particular use case where you could use that data. And one of the things that I did previous to this is put that same information together on a single infographic. So here's my Belgian brewpub market profile. So it's got some of that Esri demographic information as well as some spending data. It's got some site attributes from the actual location, so we know what the building's area is, the square footage. This actually can be collected by our mobile application, as well as some site pictures, and we could kind of scroll through and see the different site pictures. We've got a graph that shows some population, but here's where it becomes really cool. Here we're actually aggregating that market potential for beer for a 20-minute walk time around this particular facility. And then remember those brew pub locations that I'm going to be visiting later in the summer? Now I could actually create a little map here that shows me here's the train station. Here are all the brew pubs within 20 minutes that I could visit from this particular station that we've got right here as well too, that we've got available to us. So hopefully that gives you an idea of some of the things that you can do within the Business Analyst Web application. Again, come visit us in the spatial analysis if any of this kind of tweaked your interest. All right, so let's get back to, we got a couple of slides to wrap up, and then we'll open it up for some questions. So just, I guess in summary, my favorite feature inside the Business Analyst Web app are these infographics. I really encourage you to check them out. For if there are any developers in the room, you could also, they're part of the JavaScript API. So there's a great sample out there where you could actually, that shows you how you could create your own infographic and then create your own custom application with one of those infographics. We just introduced the nearby capability as well too. So one note, we do have the Business Analyst mobile application. It's a great companion app with the Business Analyst Web application. Administrator can configure what attributes you would configure for a site. It allows you to create those photographs, and this basically seamlessly syncs between the web application. And those are native iOS and Android apps as well too. So if you haven't downloaded one of those apps, highly encourage you to check that out. So just quick recap or summary for our existing users about the kind of the key things that we're releasing with this user conference. And then one final slide here just in terms of some of the things that we're working on for the rest of the year. We'll be making 2 other global data updates, one in September and one towards the end of the year. We're working on our next Pro release, the 2.3 release, that again will be in the box, and we're working on adding some additional geoprocessing tools as well as some more advanced trade area techniques as well too. And then we're going to be making it a native Pro experience for doing custom data and also viewing those infographics as well too. We'll also be doing additional work on the mobile and web applications as well too. And the last note is that we're going to continue to improve our Business Analyst server offering. So we're going to be introducing something new at our 10.7 release called Business Analyst Enterprise that will have a really highly performant and scalable server where it'll allow you to do things like bulk geo enrichment and do things really natively fast. So there is a session tomorrow if you're really interested in the demographic data, what's new in demographic data, and room 8 tomorrow at Thursday. And then a reminder before we take questions that we really do appreciate feedback on these sessions. It helps us understand, are there things that you liked in this session? Are there things that were over your head, didn't understand, didn't find interesting? Because it really helps us make sure that we have good sessions next year. So with that, we'll open it up if anyone has any questions. So first question at the back.
Yeah, so I got two questions. First, new to the business analyst.
Yeah.
At least, so you didn't really touch on current server features right now. And looking at what you were showing us, I thought, this reminds me of like network access tools a little bit. So through the web app, you're mostly consuming credits.
Yeah.
The desktop or the server, is the main benefit that you're not consuming credits by being through your on-premises server and or?
Yeah, I mean, there are other benefits that you could be doing things at scale and working with on-premise data versus online data. We have a number of customers that are doing things both ways, especially with international data. So maybe you have the on-premise data in the United States, but then they want to do some analysis in Canada or another country, then they could just use that online data as well too. So, and just a point of emphasis, even though the demo that I showed was showing the online application, that web application is an on-premise application that could work with Business Analyst Server, so it will work on-premise or in the cloud, both ways.
And one other really quick question, sorry. So you showed bringing in web maps and other materials into the
Yeah.
Business Analyst Web. Can I go all the way around? Or is that
Yeah, so as Stephen mentioned, there is a way that all the work that you save is basically saved as feature content in your portal. So when you create a site, create a ring, create a map, it all gets saved as layers, and you could add those through just navigating to your portal as well too. And at any point in time in Business Analyst, you could also save your work out as a web map as well too. Good question, thank you. Any other questions? Great, thanks everyone. Enjoy the rest of the conference.